Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is the 225th Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I've put onto YouTube. This is a bonus midweek battle, so I hope you enjoy it. And as you can see, this is fought on a map I don't think I've ever done a YouTube battle on before. This is the map called the Alpine Valley. And as you can see, it's very challenging to Team 1, who we are. And I used to take Brotherhood members on this map when I hosted games years ago, as it really tested their attacking ability, because it gives the other teams such a big advantage. And it should be an interesting battle for you to watch. It's unusual, it's fought at night, and as I say, it's fought on the Alpine Valley. The first teammate is myself, Spartan Commander, who's bought the Rome Julii faction. And just going down here, you can see how steep the ground is for us to attack. The second teammate is a RTW player called Ice Cream, who's bought the Rome Brutii faction. And just close in there to show you how steep it is to go up that hill there from that angle. This game was hosted about a month ago, and it's a no-pass game. So the people in the other team I don't really know. And our third teammate is Brotherhood member Steve Longshanks, who has bought the Rome Julii faction. And looking at his part of the map as well, can you see how steep, if he wants to attack up there, that actually is. So it's a very challenging map, this, for Team 1. The attacking team has got a massive challenge. And as I said, years ago I used to take Brotherhood members on this map, and it used to be a real challenge for us, especially when we were facing good players. As I said, this is a no-pass game, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And here is the other team. RTW player Alexander, who has bought the Greek Cities faction. As I said, this is a no-pass game, so anybody in the lobby could join, and I don't really know these players, but I thought it would be interesting to host on this Alpine Valley, because it gives us such a disadvantage, our team such a disadvantage against maybe newer players. Their next teammate is RTW player Lee, who has bought the SPQR faction. And if you notice, he's bought a lot of archers. He's going to make the most of his hill advantage here. And their third teammate is RTW player Samv 2012, who's also bought the Greek Cities faction. So as you can see, Team 2 has got a huge advantage in this game on being on such high ground. And Team 1 is got such a disadvantage in trying to attack that high ground, as you can see looking from up here. And as I say, years ago when I used to bring Brotherhood members on this map, it used to be a real tussle to get to the top. Okay, right at the very start of this battle, what I try and do is get up onto the flat ground just in front of where my army is here. If I can achieve getting up onto that flat ground, at least that's a bit of an advantage. And I think the player I'm facing there is probably a newer player, otherwise he would have run his Greek cities up there to try and hold that higher ground. Let's just have a look at my teammates here. As you can see, Ice Cream and Steve, as you see, Ice Cream doesn't want to attack up such a steep hill as that. That would be almost suicide. So he's going to come all the way around and follow the route that I did. And my thoughts here is Steve Longshanks going to do the same. As you can see, look at that massive hill that if he wanted to try and attack up there, those archers would literally kill him as he was trying to go up the hill, because they've got such a massive hill advantage. And the archer fire would be very intense. And as I say, with hill advantage like that, those arrows would do a heck of a lot of damage. So there's a general overview of the battle at the moment. As I say, it's a no-pass game, so I'm not sure how good the players on the other team are, but with such a massive advantage, it should still be a good one for you to watch. Maybe in the latter stages where we have to attack the hill. Okay, if you notice, I've taken my Rome Julii troops now. And now I've got the downhill advantage on that Greek Cities player. As I say, I think if he'd have been an experienced player, he would have run his Greek Cities straight up and tried to hold that flat ground before I could get there. So my guess is it's probably one of maybe a newer player to RTW, but we've all been there, and we've all been new players at one time. So that's just the way things go there. Let's say he's running his Greek Cities troops into the forward units of my guys. I guess at this stage of the battle I'm going to throw a lot of pilers into those Greek city ranks here. You can see it's almost raining pilers, and of course with the uphill advantage which I got now, those pilers will do a lot more damage than if they were just on flat ground. As you can see, there's a lot of fire arrows coming into me, but remember this battle was fought at night, so most of the arrows will be fire arrows. Right, can you see here I'm attacking down here with my cavalry, trying to take out some enemy Greek cavalry and some archers there. As you can see, my allies are coming up the route that I went there to avoid trying to attack up such a steep hill. Now if you come over here, can you see why Lee has bought his archers? Can you see the distance that those archers are firing down onto Steve's infantry there? That's a massive distance. It's such a huge hill advantage that this team has got, and those archers are making the most of that hill advantage there. You can see at that range, I mean, Steve's army is a long way away, and yet they're still suffering massive casualties from those archers there. So I say, Team 2 might not be experienced players, but they certainly got the, if you like, the ground advantage here. I say here, I'm just trying to finish off the Greek cities player that I'm up against here. As you can see now, because I managed to get onto that flat ground, I've now can move downhill onto the enemy, which of course will give me a big advantage there. A downhill advantage is quite large in this game. As you can see, the Greek cities general has just moved over there, and he's a Spartan unit, so I don't want to have much I don't have much trouble with a pike unit with my cavalry there, so I'll move my cavalry out the way and move an infantry unit or a couple of infantry units in to take on that general there. If you notice that Ice Cream has brought his archers to bear now. They're starting to fire arrows into the enemy Cretan archers there. And his army is nearly joined with mine now. Seeing his army approaching, I've decided that I'm going to move the bulk of my army up towards the enemy team there, the other two team. I mean, destroying this Greek cities player here has kind of made it a 2v3 in a way. But when you see the massive hill advantage that the enemy's got, it kind of almost neutralises that. But as I say, you'll see that a bit later. You can see Steve had to go extremely wide out there to avoid being hit by those archers, so he's going to take a while to get up here, I think. So you see I'm moving the bulk of my army up towards the steep hill where the enemy troops are, and Ice Cream with his green Brutii army is just moving over to the if you like, the crest of that hill there, down towards the enemy. I think Steve Longshank's cavalry is with us as well. Just a few of the enemy Greek city units left there. Let's say we're probably this Greek cities army will probably fold pretty soon. But you can see I'm taking my troops up towards the steep part of that hill there. If you notice that the SBQR player was moving his archers forward, ready to use his hill advantage with his archers. Let's say I think that Greek cities general Alexander has just admitted defeat there. I don't want to move too far forward because I know that those archers would have a big advantage. Right, let's just pause the game for a second to take stock of the situation. As I say, you can see that Steve has had to go really wide to come up the route that we've taken, simply to avoid archer casualties from that massive hill advantage that those archers had. As I say, this enemy Greek cities general Alexander has just admitted defeat. So you could think we've got the advantage now because we've turned it like into a 2v3, but if you look at the hill that we've got to try and get up now to attack those enemy troops, there's a view from our infantry's point of view. Can you see how steep that hill is? And as I said, the enemy will bring their archers forward there, and they'll get a massive hill advantage there with their archers. good solid Roman army, and looks like quite a good Greek cities army up on top of that hill. As we know, fighting Greek cities head on is not something that Roman generals like to do anyway, and especially when they're on top of a hill. So let's see what happens next.
Great gods be praised! The enemy general is killed.
Okay, you can see that Lee's brought his archers forward there. Now I've moved my infantry, if you like, to the foot of the hill. Steve is still quite a long way away with his infantry. So it'll be interesting to see what actually happens there. As you notice that there's 2 Cretan archers have been moved forward. Now Roman urban cohorts on a flat map can usually take arrows firing at them head on, and they don't suffer a lot of casualties. But because the hill gives those archers such a massive advantage there, making those arrows hit so much harder, it's causing me a lot of casualties. So if you notice now, I'm moving my units into Testudo to get the best protection from the archer fire. If you notice there that any new players playing RTW, you might not have seen this done before, but there you go, you can see that I've gone into Testudo there. And if you notice now, if it's got all-round defence there, the Testudo, so those arrows can fire down on me all they want, and are not going to cause a lot of casualties, even with that massive hill advantage there. So that's why I've gone into Testudo. As you can see, the fire arrows kind of almost bounce off the shields of that Testudo. There you can see a volley of fire arrows coming in now. And remember, it's at night time, so those fire arrows really show up here. And as you can see, the Testudo is extremely effective at stopping missiles from injuring your or causing casualties to your troops. And bearing in mind that I'm at the bottom of the hill, and those archers have got such a massive advantage on that hill, I think Testudo was the best formation to go into. I noticed that Ice Cream's Brutii Roman force coming up behind us now. And now we've got to start thinking about how we're going to assault that hill. If you notice, they're bringing their archers even closer now. I think the SBQR general is moving his archers forward there to engage Ice Cream's archers there. That's why he's brought them forward. But can you see, because they're up on the hill, they've still got such a massive advantage. They can actually reach his archers from that range. Right, okay, let's pause the game for a second. Right, as you can see here, Steve's army is approaching quite quickly. We've got Ice Cream's Brutii army there, and I've got my army there in Testudo. And they've got the archers forward there. As I said, these archers have got a massive advantage. And we've got to start thinking now about how we are going to attack that hill. Now, RTW veterans watching this, plus maybe newer players to RTW, how would you go about attacking that hill? I'll just show you. If you think about flanking that hill, see how steep it is all the way around. Whichever way we wanted to move, and don't forget, every time we moved, we'd be suffering loads of casualties from those archers. So if we try to go round the force, you can see that every direction we look at, it's a steep hill to assault. And as I say, every time we move, we'll be suffering massive casualties from those archers. Maybe this flank here, if we came round those rocks, maybe that might give... it's a slightly less hilly way to get up there, but it still would be attacking uphill. So whichever way we look at this, trying to assault this hill is going to be extremely difficult. And as I say, I just wondered, there's a view of down the hill from the enemy troops there looking at us. So I was just going to say, RTW veterans and new players to RTW, what do you think your tactics would be to attack this hill? How do you think you would attack? Because they're not coming down, make no mistake, they've got the ground advantage, they're not going to come down to us. They're just going to stand there and we're expected to attack them. And that's what we're going to try and do. But how we're going to do it, it'll be interesting to see. Because whichever way we try to get up that hill, we're going to suffer massive casualties to start off with from the archers, and then when we get closer, they're going to have downhill piler advantage as well. So it's going to be a real problem, I think. And I bet there's a few RTW players thinking to themselves, "Whoa, what am I going to do now? What would I do if I was in that position to get up that hill?" So we're going to have to really use our strategy and tactics to beat the enemy on top of that hill. Should be a good one for you to watch. Okay, so how we're going to attack this hill. If you notice that I've got my troops in Testudo, what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to advance up that hill in Testudo. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I know that if I'm just out of Testudo, I would suffer loads of casualties from those archers. And when I got closer to those SPQR infantry, the downhill pilot advantage would be massive. So I'm moving forward in Testudo. Now, I don't know if you know this, but moving in Testudo really tires your troops out. And actually moving in Testudo uphill tires them out even more. And it wouldn't surprise me that if by the time my units get anywhere near the enemy, all my units are going to be exhausted, which of course is really bad for morale. But I think trying to assault that hill in normal formation, we'd lose so many men trying to get up there that we would probably lose the battle at the top anyway. So I'm taking a chance here and advancing in Testudo, as I said, up to the enemy lines there. There you go. You can see slowly moving forward in Testudo. Let's say it takes a bit of time. They move very slowly when they're in Testudo, and as I say, it does really tire them out, and especially moving uphill as well. My guess is they would become exhausted. But if you notice, the enemy are firing arrows down onto me, but because I'm in Testudo, I'm not suffering any casualties. It's just it makes me move slowly. If you notice that my Brutii ally is moving over to my left, probably to engage possibly the Greek cities. As you can see, it's slowly moving forward, that Testudo, and the enemy's just waiting there. Now if you notice that Steve Longshanks has gone out to my right. Now what I'm wondering there is if he's thinking of a right flanking action there. I'm just wondering if he's thinking about bringing his infantry. If I engage the forward units of that SBQR army, if he brought his army up around the flank. Right, if you notice, our Brutii ally now is moving towards the Greek cities. My guess is here he's going to really pile those Greek cities with his urban cohorts. There you go. You can see that he's going to really pile them. There'll be loads of pilots going into those cores and loads of casualty before he actually gets engaged. If you notice there, the flank on those Greek city army is a little bit open. If you could get some units around that flank, that would be a good move. As you see, I'm slowly moving forward. That's the problem with Testudo, is you do only move slowly. And as I say, my troops are gradually getting more and more exhausted as they're moving up the hill. But I'm hopefully soaking up a lot of arrow fire, and I'm going to soak up a lot of piler hits as well for my allies there. Right, there's a bird's eye view from the enemy, looking down upon my units moving towards them. There, did you notice my unit there is exhausted? And that's a big problem. Because the enemy troops at the top have just been stood there, so all those troops are going to be fresh. Right, if you notice, remember what we said about Ice Cream may try and get his Brutii units around the flank of the Greek cities there, which is what he's done. Nice little tactical move there. He's piloted a lot of those units as well. As you see, I'm just coming up to engage the SBQR forward ranks there. And I reckon Steve, he's in Testudo as well. If he takes his units out of Testudo, he might be able to flank the SBQR army there. Let's just pause the game for a second. Let's say here you can see my troops are either very tired or exhausted here as I approach the fresh enemy troops on the crest of the hill. And if you notice here over on the right flank, can you see Steve taking his infantry out of Testudo? So I think he's going to run his infantry out there. I'm taking my cavalry round the flank and the rear of the SBQR troops there. But as Steve's taking his units out of Testudo now, my guess he's going to run them up on a flanking action there. And over here on our left flank, as you can see, Ice Cream with his Brutii army is attacking aggressively there. And as I say, you can see that I'm approaching there with my unit still in Testudo. If you notice that Lee there with his SBQR army has put some units into open order in anticipation of me actually probably coming out of Testudo and throwing pilers into him. So that's why he's probably gone into open order there. If you notice, he's already seen that Steve Longshank is coming over on the left flank there. Sorry, our right flank. So now he's moved some units over there to block Steve. He's got the downhill advantage, so if he starts throwing pilers, he's going to cause Steve a lot of casualties there. Bearing in mind that Steve is a lot lower than Lee. And you can see there's a load of pilers going into Steve's units there. He's going to suffer a lot of casualties there by those on that hill advantage that the SBQR team have got. But I think Steve's doing the right thing here, because he's trying to move those units round the flank, or even if he can, get round the rear of those SBQR units there. Let's pause the game for a second. As you can see, I'm taking my cavalry up behind the SBQR infantry. Steve's trying to get his infantry up round behind as well. If you notice, I've got my my exhausted infantry pinning the forward units of those fresh SBQR infantry. You can see the our Brutii teammate there has gone round our left flank there. He's got his cavalry round there as well, hoping to get in behind those Greek city units. And over here you can see that, as I said, Steve's trying to get round behind the SBQR enemy troops there. For my part here, I'm just trying to pin those forward units just to hold them there. I know that my troops are not going to be very effective because they're so exhausted, but the last thing I want is to try and push them too hard where they may rout. You see my infantry attacking there against fresh troops, and they've still got a slight uphill advantage there. Right, Steve just charges cavalry in there. Nice little cavalry hit there by Steve. I don't think the SBQR general bought any cavalry. I think he's bought mostly. I think he bought 14 infantry and 6 archers, from what I could see. So we definitely did have the cavalry advantage there. If you notice, I'm charging my cavalry into those engaged SBQR troops. And if you notice that Lee saw my cavalry come charging, and he's turned some of his forward SBQR units in to receive that cavalry charge. And if you notice, Steve's coming as well from that flank with his cavalry. Nice combination hit there from Steve and myself. Let's just pause the game for a second. Just show you the casualties that Steve took as he ran round in front of those SBQR units there. That's with the downhill pilot advantage that they had. It caused them a lot of casualties there as he moved around that flank. As you can see here, the enemy SBQR infantry is holding quite well. Bearing in mind we've got in behind them, we're hitting them with cavalry. I see our Brutii Ice Cream ally has brought his cavalry over here as well. And we're really attacking the enemy SBQR infantry there, and they're holding extremely well. My guess is that with just 14 infantry and 6 archers, he's probably got really good upgrades on that SBQR infantry. That's why they're holding so well. Without bringing any cavalry and just the archers, he'll have a lot of extra money to spend on his infantry. So my guess is that a lot of his infantry have got an experience stripe on. And as we've seen in other battle videos, infantry with gold and experience stripe really do hold well. But that was a nice little move there by Steve, going around that flank and getting in behind the enemy. And it was a nice little plan there that I kind of held the front while he moved in around the flank and the rear. So that was quite a good little bit of teamwork there. And our teammate Ice Cream with his Brutii army is, as I say, facing the Greek cities units over on our other flank there. But the manoeuvrability and the easy way to move the Roman infantry, you get in behind those Spartan units, you can flank them. Let's just pause the game for a second. As you can see here, a lot of the Greek city units are engaged, but a lot of them are getting surrounded or are surrounded. We'll be moving down probably from the hill to get in behind them in a second or two. So we've captured the main part of that hill at the top there. And I say that was as I'm sure you would agree, a formidable hill to attack there. But we managed to do that. Still a lot of the SBQR units are managing to hold. As I said, I'm pretty sure they must have had a stripe on them, those infantry. That's why they're doing so well. But now I notice that several of them are starting to rout. So my guess is we're going to start moving down from the hill towards the enemy Greek cities units at any time now.
Way for a leader to behave, but in battle, it's beyond belief. The enemy general is slain, and now his men fear us. It is
you
time
see,
to
our
press the attack.
ally, Brutii ally Ice Cream did extremely well in kind of holding up the Greek cities, stopping them from reinforcing their teammate up on the hill. So he did extremely well there in that nice tactical move that he did in holding the Greek cities up. I was just thinking to myself, if those Greek cities had been right on top of the hill, things might have been a bit different for us when we attacked. Right, if you can notice now, from the top of the hill, we're starting to move our Julii troops forward here to kind of finish off these Greek city infantry. But as we know, the Spartans have got 2 hit points, really good morale. But I think they'll probably be distraught by enemy numbers and things like that. Their morale will drop, and especially as our Julii armies are coming from downhill, the advantage we'd have there would be quite massive there. So as I say, this was a no-pass game. The people that joined, most of them I didn't really know, but I thought with such a map advantage there that the Team 2 had, I thought it kind of almost, if you like, neutralised if they were newer players, because they had such ground advantage, if you see what I mean. I mean, that really was a steep hill to attack there. And I just wondered if it was the tactics that you would have done if you'd have been in charge of those armies. Just like I say, really well played to everybody in the game. I thought this was an unusual battle to put on. It's fought at night. It's fought on an Alpine Valley map, extremely difficult map. And I know it was a no-pass game, so there's players in there who probably are newer players. But I thought with that massive map advantage, they had a good advantage, as I said. And look at the kills that Lee got. Now, bearing in mind he was facing 3 Roman armies, to get that many kills, not far off 2,000 kills, I thought that was really good for him. Highest kills in the battle there, so well done to him. And well done to Steve and Ice Cream. I hope you enjoyed the battle, and it was a great battle to be in.